welcome to the Sapphire Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Nico Sapphire, and on this show, I'm here to provide you engaging conversations with diverse guests on all things entertainment, lifestyle, life as a woman, and so much more coming from the life of a creative. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Sapphire Sessions. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sapphire Sessions. I'm your host, Nico Sapphire, and today I am here with my good friend and current Amazon Prime Video employee,
oh my God,
Ella
stop
Pascua,
it. Stop it.
who is doing all sorts of cool stuff in the film industry. So what is your exact title again at the company?
I'm an events coordinator at Amazon Studios.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Well, Ella, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This
Of
is so
course.
exciting. I'm so proud of you. This is so
Sweet.
amazing.
Stop. Well, I'm glad you're here. We have some very important things to discuss today, don't
Yes,
we?
lots.
Yes, we do. So, but briefly, before we get into that, I wanted to make a quick announcement. Sapphire Sessions is now available to listen to, not just on Spotify, but Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and Amazon Music. It's about time.
Oh my God, the crowd cheered.
Yes.
Finally.
Oh my gosh, I have a little sound effects here.
Oh,
little sound effect. Yes, there we go.
I loved it.
Good. Thank you, everybody. So tune in anywhere you'd like. We're expanding. But back to today's episode. So we have recently come out of the election and we've been processing the results. We've been grieving, obviously. There have been lots of emotions following the election. We've been in shock. We, especially as women, are truly terrified of what this means and what our country is going to look like in the coming years. So having said that, having all those feelings, it should be no surprise that I wanted to come on here and talk all about it, address some things that I feel need to be said, and just open up the conversation. So my hope is that anyone listening who's feeling some of the same things we are after finding out the results can resonate as well.
For sure.
So let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
So Ella and I, we were both hoping for a very different result from this election. Obviously, as I said before, we've been in shock, and like most of us feeling this way, we've been just trying to figure out what the hell actually happened.
Yeah.
So, the rally around Kamala's campaign in such a short amount of time, it was beyond, I think, what anybody was expecting.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about, I feel like we can't not shout out Kamala HQ, which literally gave me life.
Love them.
What did you think about that?
Well, let's talk about when she was announced as being the Democratic nominee, or just Biden endorsing her as the Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
I was with my girlfriend in bed and we were both scrolling through Twitter as per usual.
Yeah.
And we remember finding out Joe Biden dropped out via pop base.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh my
Not it being pop base. I was like, oh my God. But I think what made people so excited about this was that she is not an old white man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
We need to stop with these old white men. Like what are they doing in our politics? First of all, they do not represent America.
Too many now.
So Kamala Harris,
Yeah.
prime age, ready to take on the Republican Party. I think that's what made everyone so excited. That's what made me excited.
Yeah.
And just how amazing Kamala HQ was. They were so in touch with what is so trendy and exactly what our generation is doing. So I think that's what made everyone so excited about it. But yes, I think she's exactly what we need. We need to get white men out of politics. Like they need to be gone.
Period.
Gone. They need to be gone.
Yeah. I know, it really is, like you said, like it doesn't represent so many people feel, and it is so, out of touch of reality. I think,
I think about her and her story of growing up with a middle-class mom and how it's just, that's what most of America is, middle-class working families. And to see someone go from living in an apartment in the Bay Area to becoming the Democratic nominee for president, I think that's what's so exciting. And getting to see myself in her is truly exactly what we needed.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that way, And I think with Kamala HQ, it felt so real too, and just like any other, that was, I think, the biggest thing, like any internet meme that you would see, and the realness and it was so Gen Z coded, first of all.
I'm still laughing at the bio on X, well, I call it Twitter.
Yeah.
Providing context.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. God, there was some good. I mean, that could be a whole thing in its own of us just listing all the Kamala HQ memes.
No, for sure. But one thing that I will say about Kamala HQ, I think a few days after the election, there was a picture of Kamala HQ, and it was a picture of young people, so hip, so diverse, so trendy. And I was like, these people are so cute. And they were clearly Gen Z.
Oh, like the team behind it?
The team behind Kamala HQ. Okay. Yeah. Right. Honestly, all my love to them.
Yeah.
Because they were doing the very most. And there was so much work. There's so much work that goes into doing social media, but they garnered so many followers in such a small amount of time.
Yeah. I remember, I'm not sure if I caught that picture with the team, but I remember seeing some of them would actually do like videos of themselves, kind of behind
on TikTok.
Yeah. And even there was a couple on Instagram, like people who were behind it. And then it was crazy that they finally like revealed their faces. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is who's been, behind all these hilarious posts and whatnot,
sure.
And who's been coming up with all this stuff. So, I mean, that I feel like, was something that was never seen before and really connected to at the beginning. And for so long, I thought it was so smart for them it was really directed towards us, our generation, and Gen Z.
Yes.
And the whole internet.
The thing with this one is it's such a different, because obviously I have a background in communication, you have a background in communication, and the big thing is like, who is our audience?
Yeah.
And the difference in how President Biden's administration was addressing folks was much, much more different than how Kamala Harris was running her campaign when it came to key messaging and how she was addressing people.
Yeah.
And when it came to how she addressed people, it was much younger, much trendier.
Yeah.
A little bit sassier, a little bit zesty.
I mean, that's who she is too. So I think it worked.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Imagine like Biden, like having that kind of online presence, like it wouldn't have fit.
No,
you know what I mean?
Would not.
Even
have
if
fit.
they would have tried to. I mean, it wouldn't have been like that anyways.
Yeah.
Right, like you said. But I think it fit her
for sure,
and who she was. But unfortunately, it didn't work as well as we thought it was going to.
Still distraught over this.
I know. Yeah, that really. Yeah, I mean that gave me so much hope, and I was seeing all the kind of the community that it built.
Yeah,
just like you look at the comment section on those little posts, so. But that's what we're here to talk about. But first of all, so you, Ella, had firsthand experience in helping and participating in Kamala Harris's campaign, canvassing for Kamala on a bus with total strangers from LA to Vegas, is that right? And knocked on doors for Kamala. So tell me all about your experience here.
Oh my God, there was so much that happened there. But first, let's talk about why I wanted to do it.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, there was a lot of anxiety going into this election. Every day for the past 4 months, it was going online, checking polls, going on Twitter, seeing people talk about who was going to win. And there was just so much anxiety about the election. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this anxiety?
Yeah.
I can't just stay at home and do nothing and just tweet about this. Like I can't do that. Yeah. So I decided to channel this energy into actually doing something. Mm-hmm. I remember Michelle Obama's speech, you have to do something. We have to do something. I can't have let this election pass by, and said to myself, oh my God, I wish I did more.
Right.
I was not going to let that happen. That happened in 2016 and I was not going to let it happen this time.
Yeah.
So I signed up super last minute to go on this Swifties for Kamala Harris to Vegas. And I remember signing up literally 2 days before, and I told my girlfriend, we're going to have to cancel plans on Saturday. I'm heading to Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
To go knock on doors for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And God bless her soul, she was like, anything for Kamala Harris. Like, I support it. You have, you do your thing.
I remember you when you texted me, and like a week before you were like, any interest in going to Vegas or Nevada or something?
Because I didn't want to do this alone. Right. It's scary.
Right. But you did. Right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary doing this alone. Like as a woman of color, as a queer woman of color, going into literally like a battleground state. Like I was on this bus. First of all, we met in Westwood, and I immediately started to feel much better. The people there were so welcoming, so inviting, so nice. And everyone was introducing themselves. And I was like, okay, like these are my people. These people believe what I believe. Yeah. They're not going to see me and they're going to be like, why is she here?
Right.
Everyone had the same purpose of being there. They wanted to do something for this election.
Yep.
And we were on our way to Vegas, blasting Taylor Swift songs, having the time of our life.
Yeah.
We were playing The Man 20 million times because we were like, we have to get The Man out of the White House.
Yes, that's funny.
So when we started this trip, it was a bunch of strangers, but when we literally got to Vegas, like 7 hours later because of traffic going into Vegas, we were all best friends.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is setting the tone for what's going to come.
Yeah.
And there are so many stories that came out of this for me, and I think such a big opportunity for me to grow as a person. Like, as obviously, like, I reached out to you wanting to like have a friend with me, but I came out of this alone and so proud that I did it.
Yeah.
And it's because I got to talk to voters.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I went there. I wanted to talk to voters, understand what was going on in their head about the election, if they were voting in the election. And I remember the first time I was, the van dropped me off with a seasoned canvasser. And I was like, I do not know what I'm doing.
Oh, wow.
I was so scared. They gave me like Kamala Harris pamphlets and they were like, knock on the door. You have to say this, this, and this. And you have to make sure to leave literature.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so intense.
Wow.
And we were knocking on doors and, it started off so strong. We were knocking on doors, kept knocking on doors, but no one was answering. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the reason. Like, people don't open doors these days. Like, when was the last time you opened your door to like someone that like knocked and you were like, wait, like, mom, who are like,
I know. Yeah.
Is someone coming over today? I didn't know. Like, who's knocking on my door?
Unless they're trying to sell something. Then
for sure.
Rare.
It's like no solicitors. Like, I do not want to talk to a solicitor right now.
Yeah.
So knocking on these doors, no one's answering, and I'm feeling so discouraged. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I want to talk to a voter.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here. I want to talk to a voter.
Yeah.
And I'm knocking on doors, and I'm midway through, and I hear Trump canvassers behind me.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be like a standoff right now? Like,
wait, that's crazy.
Are we going to start fighting? Like, is that what's going to happen?
Oh no.
Because the list that we're given, they're obviously like, the lists that were given are Democratic voters that are registered Democrats, but also undecided and independent voters.
Gotcha.
And these are the voters that we want to be talking to.
Right, exactly.
So all of the communities that both Kamala Harris, like their team, and the Trump team are given, same communities.
Makes sense. Okay.
And I'm like, oh my God, are we going to have a fight?
Holy moly.
We didn't have a fight, but I went in a different direction. I was like, I do not want to engage because like we're going to be wasting our time if we're engaging with these people. Because
that's not what you came here to do.
I came here to talk to voters. I didn't come here to like fight with Trump voters. I didn't come here to fight with these people. Yeah. And kept knocking, not many people answering. And I remember at the end of my list, I was like, okay, this is the last street. Like, we have to get through this list before I take my break. Yeah. And one of the last houses, I knocked on the door. No one answered, but I could hear someone speaking Tagalog, which is my native tongue.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay.
Wow.
I think this is something.
Yeah.
Knock on the door again. She opens the door. Hey, is this person home? Honey, he's bedridden. I'm not too sure. And I'm like, okay, that's totally fine. Are you planning to vote in the election? Do you have a plan to vote in the election? I do, but we have a few more voters here and they don't plan to vote. And I walk away and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, no. I'm going to go back and knock on the door again and talk to them.
Okay.
Hey, why aren't you planning to vote? And she's translating to her great aunt who speaks only her native tongue, which is Tagalog.
Okay. Did you understand?
I understood what she was saying because I'm like passively fluent. So I could understand when someone speaks to me in both Tagalog and Ilocano because those are both my parents' like dialect.
Okay. Yeah.
But I can't speak it, which is unfortunate. So we had kind of like an translator because the person that answered the door was the caregiver of this great aunt.
Gotcha. Okay.
And she had asked her, why aren't you planning to vote? And she had said, I can't vote. And I said, what do you mean? Are you a citizen? And she was like, yes, I'm a citizen. And I'm like, you can vote. And she was like, no, but I recently moved here and I don't think I could vote. And I'm like, no. Like, someone will come to your door and make sure that you get registered as a voter. Yeah. And she was like, oh my God. Okay, I'll vote.
Okay.
That's simple.
Wow. Yeah.
And when I walked away from this, I was like, okay, this is why we knock on doors.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just need a little push.
Right.
they need a little push to go out and vote, and every vote counts.
Yeah.
Truly, it's a battleground state. Every single vote counts.
Right.
I remember we were on the van back, and they were talking about statistics per district, and it's usually 2 votes per district that really set apart the election, you know?
Yeah.
So I was so happy about this, like from being so completely discouraged to immediately, I only talked to one voter and I felt so encouraged.
Wow. Yeah.
That was amazing. That was my first day. That was the first day success story.
Yes.
And the next day it was a little bit more seasoned. A lot more people were answering the doors. But I remember the first assignment that I had, we were dropped off into truly the belly of the beast. I say the belly of the beast because we were in this van getting dropped off, and it was a gated community.
Okay.
And every single house, Trump signs.
Oh my gosh. Uh-oh.
And I tell my partner, I'm like, we're going to be here?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And our lead goes, this is so important for you to be here because every door that you knock on, they're Democratic voters, and they have to know that someone's out there fighting for their vote. Yeah. Someone's out there fighting to make sure that the state turns blue. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. Hyping myself up and go through the first street. I get to the end of the street, and finally someone answers the door. Hi, do you have plans on voting in the election? I do. Great. Who do you plan on voting for? Not for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye. And I think that's what most people are scared of when they're canvassing, encountering voters that are going to be voting against who they're campaigning for.
Yeah. Right.
But I think like when we had our training, you can't really engage with these voters because it's wasting your time to be, having an argument with these voters when you could be having conversations with people that need that type of information.
Undecided. Yeah. Because, you don't want to, like you said, it's kind of waste of time when they've already made the decision.
Especially when you're there for such a limited amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going through this neighborhood, and I finally get to a door, and they're clearly, busy, but I'm like, hey, are you planning to vote in this election, and who do you plan on voting for? Hi, I'm doing my ballot right now. And as they're closing the door, you're going to need a stiff drink after you get through this neighborhood. And I'm like,
oh my gosh. Wow. They said that to you.
Yeah. Cause so many signs Trump voters. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so scary, but this is the reason why I'm here. I have to talk to these voters. Right. And, I get through the rest of the neighborhood and I kind of reach a lull, but my partner takes over for the rest of my assignment. And thankfully she did, because she's a lot more seasoned than I am. And she gets to the end of her, the assignment, and she tells me that the last person that she had knocked on the door for had gate kept his daughter.
Okay.
So what happens is that, what's at the house, you could be listed at the house, and they're like, I want to talk to Nico.
Yeah.
And hypothetically, your dad answers, and your dad will be like, Nico's home. And you're like, oh, great. Can I speak with her?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to talk to her about the election.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she's not going to be voting in the election. No. Can I really speak with her? No, you can't chat with her. Because what happens is sometimes these kids, 18, 19,
sure,
they're Democrat, and their parents are Republican.
Yeah.
And the parents are going to be the ones answering the door. Right. So it's like they're gatekeeping.
Yeah.
They're gatekeeping these voters. And that's what happens. And, we have to write in their notes, you probably should call. Okay. But that was the first neighborhood, truly the belly of the beast. And I was just so anxious about that whole experience because most of the time these people did not answer. Okay. And also Trump voters answering the door. But my last assignment was truly, I think, when I walked away from this experience, I was like, these are my 2 success stories.
Yeah.
First success story listed is daughter, presumably, and the dad, because the name was like Erica and Eric. And I'm like, okay. Daughter and father. Great. Yeah. And I'm asking, hey, is Eric home? He was like, yeah, I'm Eric. And I'm like, oh, I see that you're an undecided voter. Who do you plan on voting for in this election? And do you have a plan to vote? Yep. And he goes, I'm actually undecided and I don't know who to vote for. And I'm like, great. This is why I'm here. Yeah. And I'm talking to him and he was, intaking all of this information. And he goes, yeah, I totally understand that. And, I consider myself to be apolitical. And I'm like, okay, I totally get being apolitical, but you know, I think you should be political for your daughter, because truly what's going to happen is that your vote is going to directly impact your daughter. And and I feel like you're giving me the energy that you respect your daughter. And he's like, I respect my daughter very much. I'm like, if you want your daughter to have a safe life and a life where she gets to make decisions about her own body, I think it's very important that you vote for Kamala Harris. And he says, I'm going to sit down with my daughter and have a conversation with her about this election.
There you go.
And I was so happy about this. I walked away, pepped my step, and I'm like, great, this is great.
That's amazing.
I think I got through to an undecided voter. The next house, I'm walking through this neighborhood and I see a Filipino grandmother with her grandson going out. And I'm like, looking at my list and I'm like, oh my God, I hope I have her house. I'm like, oh my God, wait, I do have her house. And I say, hi, tita, because that's what you call like, you know, you're older, you know, a Filipino, an elder. And I'm like, hi, tita, like, are you planning on voting in the election? And she's like, I do, but I don't know how to vote. She comes out with her ballot and I'm talking about the reasons of
that's amazing.
Why she should vote blue. And, you know, I think on the literature that we got is one of the main things about Kamala Harris is that she, you know, she still wants to have Social Security. Like Donald Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Our elders depend on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And her grandson that she came out with, she told me had disabilities. He was autistic. And they depend on Medicare and Medicaid. And I'm like, well, a vote for Kamala Harris ensures that you have these things. Because Donald Trump is trying to get rid of it. He doesn't care about you. He does not care about you. And I was there for about 30 minutes walking her through all of these things. And one of the things that was also brought up was, I think it was like Proposition 6 in Nevada was a woman's right to her own body. So like abortion was on the ballot.
State.
And she's asking me, what are my thoughts? And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
oh my gosh.
Because of when it comes to Filipinos, like traditionally, and what I see is that they're all mostly Catholic. So when you think of, you know, Catholic, I'm like, okay, they're probably pro-life. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Like if I say this one thing, like I feel like it's gonna like deter her from like what I want her to be voting for. Like of course I want her to vote for my own candidate. And she was like, I was like, you know what? I think it's like a private choice. And whatever a woman does to like, whatever a woman, like the choices that she makes about her own body should be between her and herself. And she goes, yeah, me as well. Like I had an abortion in the Philippines. And I'm like, okay, great.
There you go. You're safe.
Great. I could talk to you. And I'm like, yes, then you should vote. Like, I think it was yes or no, but whatever it was, you know, voting rights. In favor for abortion rights.
And that's the key, like to find out what matters to them, because you know, like you said, so far it's these little things, you know, the people that you had spoken to, like they didn't know how to vote or whatever, like these little things, right? But then talking to them about what matters to them. And I'm like, okay, if this matters to you, Kamala Harris, she's going to preserve that. Trump, he wants to get rid of that. And it's like, you have to kind of lay it out, you know, in a certain, because for some reason, there's so many people that they haven't been able to find that information out themselves. You know, so.
Exactly. And, you know, after that conversation, she had her ballot picked up within 30 to 60 minutes because the ballot assistants, God bless the Nevada Democratic team, like they picked up the ballot, called her to check in with her, and she's like, they already picked up the ballot. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to make sure that my daughter votes blue tomorrow. And I was on the bus going home from Las Vegas, and I was truly like so emotional because when you think about it, these voters, they don't know what's at stake. And oh my God, they don't know what's happening. They don't. And these volunteers are out in battleground states to ensure that they have these rights. And I still think about this grandmother and her grandson and what's going to happen in the next 4 years. If there's going to be Social Security, if there's going to be Medicare and Medicaid. And I worry about them. So, you know, from that experience, I learned so much, and I learned that there's a lot of voters that are so misinformed and uneducated, and it's not their fault. Republicans make it impossible for them to get information. Voter suppression. That's happening all across the United States. And I was like, yeah, it's happening. But then I go into these battleground states and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening.
Yeah.
And they're not getting information. Wow. Or they're just old and they don't know where to get information because they're not on their phones. They're not learning like we are. We're getting constant information, but they don't know what's happening. Yeah. So, you know, I still think about them, and I'm sure I'll be thinking about them in the next 4 years while I volunteer for these, you know, resistance coalitions to make sure that we still have the rights that we want in this world, you know. And luckily we live in California, but in these battleground states where they're red, and you think of people like us, or people that are not as privileged as us. I know. It breaks my heart. It truly breaks my heart. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I think, first of all, that is such important work, you know, and I think it's such a different, that's why, you know, I wanted you to come on here and talk about your experience, because I think it's also important for people to hear, because, you know, and I've heard stuff like that too, you know, like I just said, it's when you see it, it's so different. I feel like when you see how, again, misinformed people are, you know, and how just these little things that could be so easy to explain how to vote or why you should vote like this, you know, and it blows my mind. I mean, I think if you don't see it, it's just a totally different perspective that you can get from actually seeing it and being there. And you know, to your point again, it is different because we do live here in California and Los Angeles, you know, but it's still, I mean, I was so emotional after hearing the results. Not just, you know, being in California, we have a bit more of sense of security than other people in other states, right? But still, it made me emotional because, you know, just I think the message that it sends to the world and to society, like how all the marginalized groups should be treated because, or, you know, for example, like how men think they should be because of Trump and that this is the person they want to look up to, you know, or how men believe they should treat women, how women should be looked at and viewed, all those things, right? And all of the marginalized groups, right? Yeah. And so, you know, it's you gotta see it and be in it, you know, to really see what the consequences are going to look like. I mean, we know the consequences. We have already been informed on what could happen, and it's very, very scary. Yeah,
like you said, I mean, it's already happened. We had Trump as president.
I know.
Still traumatized over that. I don't know how my body's handling that. Yeah. But I'm like really scared about what's going to happen. But thankfully, we have a governor that's very resistant to the Trump administration.
I know. When that was coming out,
the news about like the next day, Gavin Newsom like called a meeting with all of, you know, the California team to make sure that, you know, they had proper funds to fight, you know, the good fight.
Right.
And make sure that his policies do not touch California.
I know. I saw something on the news. Yeah. Somebody said, it was maybe one of the headlines, that he's Trump proofing the state. And I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm so grateful to be here when, you know, all this is going down. Yeah. You know, but of course still, and like I said, even though some things might not directly affect us because we're here, but it's just very sad to see. And I think, you know, seeing that our country is more broken than maybe we thought.
For sure. Was. And I like, not to labor the point, but I still get so emotional about it. Like I was driving on my way home and obviously like the day after election results were confirmed, I was emotional. I was crying, but I kind of was just like numb to everything until I was driving home one day with my girlfriend. Yep. And I started crying and I was like, what are we going to do about these battleground states? What are we going to do in these red states where they're not as fortunate as us? Right. And they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen because they don't have information, or they just don't know what's happening because they can't afford to know what's happening because they're too caught up in their own situation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Trying to make a living and trying to keep the house or the family together.
No, for sure. Like my mom, she's not political, but you know, she votes blue. Yeah. God bless her soul. She votes blue. But I talk to her about politics sometimes and she's like, I'm just so busy trying to make a living and trying to make sure that we have a roof over our head and make sure that you guys are fed. Yeah. And like, that's the priority. And that's the priority for a lot of Americans. Yeah. Making sure that they're surviving from day to day and they can't be invested in politics the way that we are. And I'm so, you know, I'm grateful that I get to have a platform and that I have enough privilege to be involved in politics, but politics touches every single aspect of our lives, whether or not we know it.
Right. That's an interesting point. I didn't really think about that. People who are just figure out how to sustain their lives, and they maybe don't have the time to really find out what's going on.
For sure.
Because it's so, I think for both of us too, it's so normal. Like I'm, always staying up to date on what's going on.
For sure. And like when I, like an aspect of just like it touching every single aspect of our lives, price gouging with groceries.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris wants to get rid of price gouging.
Right.
So groceries can be a lot more affordable and we could have food in front of us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a whole other conversation too. Just the way, every single way, every little thing that politics can affect.
For sure.
In our lives. Yeah. I mean, there's so much, and there's so much ignorance, unfortunately, and misinformation too, which is big. So I want to just ask you, I mean, what do you think happened? That's a loaded question, but
what do we think happened? America, tell me.
Yeah.
Well, I think going back, I'm still distraught over this, and I'm still confused.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theories out there, and I'm still trying to grapple with what happened. Because I remember when I was waiting in line for the restroom on my way back, like from Las Vegas, we were watching CNN, and a correspondent came on, and she was talking about how the Kamala Harris campaign knocked on 1.2 million doors.
Okay. Wow.
Within 7 days.
Okay.
And this was 2 weeks before the election.
Okay.
Our ground game is so much better than the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this, because I was watching, obviously, election coverage, and they were talking about how the Kamala Harris campaign has a lot more ground game because we're in more urban areas, metropolitan areas. We're a lot more concentrated. We're able to talk to more voters because of that.
Yeah.
When you think of voters that are voting red, they're more in rural areas.
Right.
So they're going to have to walk. From house to house. It's going to be like a mile, right?
Yeah. That's a good
so
point.
it's like, I'm still confused of how these election results came to be because of our ground game. Our ground game is much better. When 2016 happened, obviously we didn't want that to happen. So 2016 up until 2020, the people mobilizing, the people resisting, this is muscle memory for them.
Yeah.
They know what happened, and they're like, okay, we are not going to let Trump be president in 2020. And what happened? Biden won the election. It's because the community, the coalitions, these people knew what to do when it came to organizing. Yep. And then going into 2024, I'm like, oh my God, we got it. I was talking to people on the bus about this, and I'm like, we're going to win. Yeah. I was so convinced we were going to win.
A lot of people were.
Because of how well organized we were.
Right.
The Trump campaign, from what I was seeing online, was falling apart. They had no organization at all whatsoever.
Right.
I look back on when I was canvassing in Nevada, and they tell us to separate and to not, you have your partners, but you go off on your own individual way, so you can touch more houses, you can talk to more voters, and the canvassers on the Trump side, they were all grouped together, walking together to one house. These groups are walking one house, one house, one house, one house, not talking to these voters. They just left pamphlets.
Oh, wow.
What? Okay. They weren't talking to voters. They were just leaving literature there and going off on their handy dandy way. Yeah. So I'm still confused about this.
Damn. Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of theories going on.
Yes, there is.
Do you believe these theories?
Well, we will get into that. I mean, there obviously, again, there's no doubt the amount of ignorance that is out there, and just the people thinking that Trump really can help the American people. Yeah. When obviously we've seen what he cares about is just himself and his billionaire friends. Yeah. And I think what was also crazy is just the way that people can overlook how awful of a person he is altogether. I mean, we can list, felon, racist, rapist, everything. And, I think there's some that overlook that. And what's crazy, you had touched on this before, that some that are actually proud of that. I remember seeing photos of people's yard signs. I don't know if you saw that was like, I'm voting for the felon. Did you see anything?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. And I'm like thinking about the video that was posted on Twitter. I'm not going to say X because I'm not going to say that.
I know.
Okay, if you say X, I immediately know who you voted for.
No, right? Yeah. That's so true.
It's Twitter.
That's so true.
Everyone, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
My PSA, it's Twitter.
It is.
But really is. I'm thinking about this video where this guy he has this shirt, like he's on a plane, he boarded first, he's like in first class, and it's like convicted felon or like Kamala Harris, and it's like convicted felon, and he's like waiting for people, trying to get a reaction out of these people. And it's like, how do you sit, just like, how do you go out in public and you're very like with your whole chest saying that you voted for a convicted felon? Disgusting. Oh, so disgusting.
It's crazy. But yeah, that is, that's most of the country, apparently. I mean, there has also been some talk of compassion, which I want to talk about a bit first. There's obviously the people who don't care about how terrible he is and also agree with his views. But there are also those, like I said, who thinks he is what America actually needs. So do you feel any compassion at all for the people who have just fallen for his lies?
I was having this conversation with my girlfriend because I was looking at this outline and I was like, oh my God, this is such a big question.
Yeah.
And I like to see myself as a compassionate person.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult for me to have compassion for people that have like fallen for Trump's lies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he's very explicit in his views and who he is as a person.
Yeah.
He's, it's face value. Like he says everything that he believes in, like all of it. Like it's not lies. Like I remember seeing, okay, let me see, the Sunday Opinion on the cover of their newspaper. Donald Trump says he will prosecute his enemies, order mass deportations, use soldiers against citizens, abandon allies, play politics with disasters. Believe him. People are like, people that are voting right, no, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
No, he is.
Right.
And they believe it.
Yeah.
But also some of these people, they hear these things and they think, oh my God, yes, do all of those things.
Yeah.
How do you have compassion for people like that?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, to have compassion. Kamala Harris said, it's not whether you're Democrat or Republican, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
It's not about who you voted for, I'm going to help you.
Right.
But as someone who, my whole being as an existence, like I'm queer, I'm a woman, daughter of immigrants. My whole being is political.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to look someone in the eyes that voted red or that have, quote, fallen for Trump's lies.
Yeah.
And to have compassion for them. It's like, oh wait, you don't like me.
Yeah.
You dismiss my existence.
Right.
How do I can't do that.
Right.
But also because I wanted to prove my point because you know me. But I wrote a few things. So he's explicit in his values and who he is as a person. Women, grab him by the pussy. Veterans, those that died in war as suckers and losers. These are people that fought for America. He sees them as suckers and losers.
Yep.
Mexicans. They're sending people that have lots of problems and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crimes, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you say all of these things and say some I assume are good people?
Yep. That's the same thing he said on January 6th when he was like, oh, it's a day of love, there's good people. Yeah, same thing. Yep.
Beats me.
Yep.
Migrants. Many of them murdered far more than one person, and now they're happily living in the United States. Now murder, I believe this. It's in their genes. And we get a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How do you... I can't look at someone and they hear all of these things.
And overlook that. Yep.
And overlook that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yep.
Do you have compassion for these people?
Oh,
I see you as a compassionate person. You're a nice person.
Yeah. This is really difficult. And this is also something, as far as relationships goes, which we'll just get into now. We're already talking about it. There is something else too I want to bring up as another quote. I feel like really sums up just all of this. Yeah. Really. How sad it must be believing that scientists, scholars, historians, economists, and journalists have devoted their entire lives to deceiving you, while a reality TV star with decades of fraud and exhaustively documented lying is your only beacon of truth and honesty. That was said by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I mean, let's just, hold space for that. For just a minute.
Lots of space for this one.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You know, and the voters, obviously, they're the ones that are going to reap the consequences of this. I mean, it's crazy that they're all voting. It's against their own interests, you know, the taxes, the tariffs, and the discrimination. I mean, the way that they think he is going to look out for them, you know. And again, and we talked about, you know, just the message that it sends to society. But as far as relationships go, after the results, and there's people saying shouldn't let politics ruin relationships. Mm-hmm. But who are the ones saying this? The Trump voters, right?
Oh my God.
And I saw another post that said the way that they don't understand why they now have to beg people to be their friend. And I mean, you know, and to your point, I mean, this is not, at this point, you know, it's not about politics, it's about morals. You know,
yes,
and voting against our rights, you know, and so it's difficult, you know, because Trump and everything he's done and he stands for, the hate, the sexual assault, felony convictions, insurrection, right? List goes on. It's been hard to grasp that all of that wasn't a deal breaker for these voters.
Do not even get me started on that.
Yeah, and so it's difficult as far as relationships go. And I was going to ask you that too, like, you know, do you stay friends or do you become friends with someone who votes for Trump? Do you try to make them understand? I mean, all these, I don't even know if I have an answer for that. I'm asking you though, but.
So I have cut people out of my life for being Trump supporters, Trump voters. It's ridiculous. And the people that did vote for Trump in my family, for economic reasons.
Right.
So you're just going to sit there and, you know, rely on the fact that he's going to cover your butt and help you financially, but you're going to totally disregard our grandmother that needs Social Security, your kids that rely on having the Department of Education. Right. You want your kid to be educated.
Yep.
And how you're going, in a few years, when your kid gets older and they ask you who you voted for, are you going to... You're going to say, oh, yeah, I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. That's shameful.
Yeah, it is.
You're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was already, first of all, I don't interact with a lot of Trump supporters on my feed, but, you know, because they're quiet. You know, they're hiding because they're not.
I know. I've noticed that too.
They're
the
hiding.
Ones that are more outspoken, you know, we have so much more at stake.
Yeah.
And you know, we did and we still do.
Yeah.
You know, but that's such an interesting thing that I noticed. And then, of course, after we find out the results, right? And that was the first thing I saw, that same post. It was like almost identical of that you shouldn't, no matter who wins, right? That you shouldn't let it affect your relationship.
Oh my God. Yes.
Thing.
It's like being mature is not letting
that's
this.
the one.
And not letting this affect you and your relationship. Yeah. Immediately unfollow. Sorry. Goodbye.
Yeah. I remember reposting that and just giving my piece about that, because I was like, well, being mature is, you know, being educated about what is at stake here and all those things. Right.
Yeah.
But
then you have these silent people and you know, the one way that I got rid of these Trump voters, Trump supporters through my feed is going to Donald Trump's, Mike Pence Instagram and JD Vance's Instagram and see who's following.
Yeah.
If you're following all three, what are you doing? Yeah. And I'm going to go through your following first to see if you're also voting. Cause you know, have these people, they follow both parties to like stay up informed on what they're posting. Right. And I'm like, okay, I won't unfollow you if you're voting like both, but like, why are you following both of them? Yeah. And if they're strictly only following the right party, immediately unfollow. Mm-hmm. I do not want to interact with you. Mm-hmm. You do not align with my values. Mm-hmm. You dismiss my existence as a person. We as women, our bodies are battleground.
Yeah.
We are battleground. Like, I'm sitting here and off somewhere, people are discussing about the rights to my own body.
Yeah.
And how they think they should have the right to it. It's like, I think on like TikTok, it was like, your body, my choice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember seeing that. It was some Congress guy. Yeah. And that's what he said. Your body, my choice. Yeah.
Disgusting.
So like repulsive that like, I think you had said that earlier. There was like a visceral reaction to something like that.
Everything visceral reaction.
I know. And then I was seeing stuff that started to go around because I was seeing some women talk about that on social media too. And that like young boys and young kids started saying that in like elementary school, like just around school or something. Oh my God. I mean, that is the most dangerous rhetoric. I don't know. You can't compare that to anything else.
Yeah. I've cut, on Instagram and like social media, cut quite a few people in my life. But I remember, these past few weeks in Thanksgiving, their thing is not to talk politics. But I didn't bring up politics until it was brought up and we were talking about being queer with my cousin. Okay. And my cousin goes, so I'm assuming you guys voted for Kamala Harris. Okay. And I'm like, yeah. I thought that all of us around the table voted for Kamala Harris. And he goes, well, us, we voted for Trump. And I'm like, why? Money. I'm like, do you make over $400,000? And they're like, no, but we will. And I'm like, my gosh. So you're just going to sit here and think about your own interest. Yep. Yeah. Because we as the Democratic Party, we vote for other people. Yeah. I don't care if I could be a millionaire right now and I would still vote blue. Yeah. Because it's just like, I want other people to have rights. Like that's, that sounds ridiculous when I say it, but it's like, come on. Yeah. Again, I mean, I keep saying it, there was so much more at stake and it was about so much more than that, and again, that's one of the biggest things or, one of the main things that, Trump voters have kept going on about that. It was the economy. But, then you have all these economists and experts. There was like that quote that I read, like that even before the results and stuff that was saying if Trump wins, that he would create just a total disaster, recession, everything. And it would make every economist has said that. Yeah. And the people that vote red, they're like, oh, the economy. He's going to ruin He's going to ruin your coin.
I know. Yeah.
Say goodbye. Yeah. People didn't understand tariffs until like literally the day that he got elected. Yeah. Like the Google search, like apparently like the stats for Google search, like what is a tariff? It's like, you're barely searching that up. Are you serious? Like you literally had all the information right there.
All the time.
Say goodbye to your money.
Yeah. I just am so like, I'm honestly fascinated. How like I wonder like to be in their minds when somebody says that when you're having a conversation and engaging with somebody just like you were with a family member and they're just like, oh yeah, I voted for Trump because of the economy, but then like to sit there in front of one of us, anybody, especially a woman and any marginalized person, but to sit there like I wonder if any of that crosses their minds, how much what they're saying and what they're doing impacts us.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. The information is all out there. Yeah. No, they do not. They're only caring about their self-interest.
Yeah. Because like for us, obviously, like how does that not cross your mind? You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, obviously we are part of the country that him winning will impact, right? Yeah. So it's obvious for us, but that's, so it's again, very hard to grasp how it doesn't cross their minds.
No, it's also because like, you'll have conversations with these people and they vote red when they have kids. And it's like, you have a daughter, you're voting red and you have a daughter.
I know.
What happens if something if something happens to her, if someone sexually assaults her, if someone like rapes her and she has to have a kid at 12, she has to carry to term and you're going to sit there and, what's going to happen then? You voted red. Pro-life?
I know.
You're pro-life?
Yeah. Well, no, they can't say they're pro-life anymore, obviously, when they're, it's killing women. So that's...
I will say pro-life is being pro-choice.
Yeah. I mean, the wording and all the message, it's been so for a long time. It's it's misleading.
How are you pro-life when there's kids out there that don't have homes? Oh, adopt. It's like there are so many kids already in the foster system, adoption system. I don't see you adopting them.
Yeah.
Pro-life right there. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. Yeah.
It's so simple for us in our head. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like,
I know.
yeah, women should have the right to, make decisions about their own body. But then you speak with these people and it just doesn't cross their mind. And that's so heartbreaking and devastating.
Yeah, with that in particular, I have been saying, as far as reproductive rights go, that's about medicine. It's not about your morals at that point. I mean, I know, with Trump winning, there's a very big moral flaw in people who could vote for him. You know? But as far as the reproductive rights, and you said this earlier too, like, it's crazy that is even up for debate, because that's the excuse that people are using. It's so interesting, because they almost forget about their morals by voting for Trump. But when it comes to stuff like this, that has nothing to do with them. They're not doctors. When it comes to women's, our autonomy, what we decide to do with our body, then it's about morals. Then they have a whole thing about abortion and they're trying to tell us what we should do.
That we're killers, that we're murderers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that when it comes to that, it is not about morals anymore. It's medicine, and this is our healthcare,
Especially, oh my God, when I'm like reading news on these doctors in these red states or the states that don't allow abortion, they're getting like fired or sued for malpractice.
Right? It's so scary. It's terrible.
These are doctors that went through years and years and years of education and, we're putting them in prison, we're arresting them for making sure that a 12-year-old gets an abortion.
Right.
Make it make sense right now.
Yep.
Devastating.
I know, it really is. Hey, I'm your host, Nico Sapphire, and you're listening to Sapphire Sessions, providing you with engaging conversations with diverse guests coming from the life of a creative. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Sapphire Sessions. So, transitioning a little bit, we talked about the obvious that broken country and flawed in morals, and as far as relationships go, a bit how to navigate that. But what I also feel needs to be addressed, I think we need to talk about how to fix the Trump supporters and the whole MAGA party, their perception of the rest of America, because clearly, the messages they weren't getting through to them, and something isn't working. Would you agree with that?
So the messages aren't getting through to them. Let's break that down. I think, first of all, the messages that they're getting, that they have heard through, fellow voters that are voting red, or just the rhetoric that they're being fed by Trump is hate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely.
The message that they're getting is hate, and hate is taught.
Yeah.
And selfishness is taught, greed is taught. So how do you
combat that?
How do you combat that?
Yeah.
When you have to unlearn these things.
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, so what I wanted to bring up here, I mean, that's a whole other thing too, I think, about unlearning, everything you're being fed. But so I think what goes hand in hand with that, in the conversations that have started to surface online, is people have been talking about how the left needs a rebrand. And that is mainly speaking to their inability, I think, to relate to these southern states and these people and their everyday living situations.
Yeah.
I think there's a big disconnect to the majority of the American people, and we saw that with the results of the election. And, to bring up like the popular vote, I mean, a Republican has not won even the popular vote in 2 decades, and Trump did here. And so, I mean, that we got to look at that and figure out why that is, and why that happened. And I think what people have been saying, the moral superiority of the left, I think, became too much. And you can look at, the celebrity endorsements and things like that. Like for me, when I saw all that coming out and these huge celebs, with such a big platform, and I was like, that gave me a lot of hope too. I was like, okay, good. They're saying something, and they've got biggest followings, and I'm like, that's got to make a difference.
For sure.
I think, it was similar with Hillary and Trump too, and she was getting a lot of that too, and it didn't work then either. Yeah. But it really lifted my spirits to see that, but the thing is, most Americans, they can't relate to them. They can't relate to these celebrities, and I think it's not just the South, but I think there have been other people that have just been getting tired of the rhetoric on the left. And
well, you said these people can't relate to celebrities.
Yeah.
Let's think about their candidate. A celebrity.
Yeah, I know.
A billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. He's running this campaign on that.
Yeah. Well, I think with what he was trying to tell voters, and this goes back to, you know, the people that they have fallen for his lies, because he was trying to make it seem like he's one of them and he's going to look out for them. And they fell for that. But it is interesting that you bring that up because, you know, there's a parallel, but I don't know. And it was weird because there was something, and this has been talked about too, you know, political commentators and stuff. Somehow Trump alone, he was able to get through to them and make them, you know, see these other celebrities that, you know, typically do they maybe just because they vote Democratic, but he was able to make them see them as like further detached or something.
But like, shouldn't it be like kind of a wake up call when you see these celebrities endorsing Kamala Harris? Because, for example, I'm a Swiftie, love Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She endorsed Kamala Harris. She makes millions of dollars. I can't even imagine how much she makes.
Yeah.
Politics is not going to touch her the way that it touches us.
Right.
So like, and she's voting blue. Politics like is not going to touch her. And she's like, okay, guys, you guys have to vote blue. Like, shouldn't that be a wake-up call in itself when someone who is not going to be affected by politics is endorsing blue because they know that's what's right for America?
Yeah. I don't think they see it that way, though. That's the thing. I don't think they think that far into it. I think they just see, you know, these other successful people who can, and I do think it's a different experience for the people in the more rural states and areas, you know, because it's again, even more detached from their daily living situation.
For sure.
You know? And so even though celebrities that they genuinely think that everybody should vote blue, right?
Yeah.
But I think they can't look past that, and they just see them, you know, in the successful big cities and stuff like that, you know. And I think that's where it comes from. And again, Trump making them believe that which, you know, again, is just part of being uneducated. They can't see that, like you said, you know, as a reality TV star, that, you know, he's one of them too. But I think in that sense, you know, and these are some other opinions that have just been floating around on the internet, which I found so interesting. And this is also from like people who vote Democrat, that they've been saying in that sense, Republicans have become more inclusive party while Democrats have become more elitist. So what do you think about that?
You know, I didn't hear this until I was reading through these notes of like, oh, like Democrats are seen as elitist. Like I had never considered that until I was like, you know, doing my little research and how like a liberal elite is seen as someone who has the privilege to have education, and because of that they become a lot more affluent and a lot more rich. Let me see if I could find that Wikipedia moment, because I was like, okay, I'd never heard of this, first of all.
Really?
I was like so shocked to have seen this. Okay. A liberal elite, also referred to as the metropolitan or progressive elite, is a term used to describe politically liberal people whose education has traditionally opened the doors to affluence, wealth, and power, and who form a managerial elite. It is commonly invoked the implication that the people who claim to support the rights of the working class are themselves members of the ruling classes and are therefore out of touch with the real needs of the people that they support and protect.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I can see that, because when I read this question, or when I hear it now, it's like, how are Democrats seen as more elitist, and how are Republicans seen as more inclusive when 79% of what makes the Republican Party are white?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. You're an inclusive party, but 79% of your party is white.
Yeah.
What's happening there?
Yeah.
But I can see to an extent why Democrats are seen more as elitist, because, you know, the whole thing about this is like, the more that you learn and the more education that you get, the more likely you're going to vote blue.
Right. That's always
fact.
been,
That's always been fact.
Yeah.
But when you think of education, it's who has access to education.
Yeah.
And who can afford education.
Yeah.
We went to a private institution. I'm very grateful that I went to a private institution. God bless my mom who's, paid my way to have this, but it's expensive.
Yep.
And not a lot of people can afford it. They go straight from high school to a vocation, to a trade, because they can't afford education.
Right.
So you learn these things. And I've seen the left just pushing information down the throats. How can you not understand this? And, I even am sometimes like, oh my God, how can these people that vote red, how can they not understand everything's out there for them?
Yeah.
But you have to kind of, and I think this goes back to compassion, you kind of have to meet them and be like, okay, this is the information that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be upset with you. Because from the left, someone, an undecided voter, let's go back. You meet an undecided voter, and I feel like a Democrat elitist would go up to them and be like, why are you undecided? It makes so much sense why you should be voting blue.
Right.
Because here's all the information. That's not how you meet an undecided voter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you undecided? These are the reasons why I'm voting blue.
Yeah.
These are things that the red party has said.
Yeah.
So to an extent, I can see why we are seen as elitist.
Yeah.
But Republicans being inclusive, I disagree with that. They are not inclusive.
Okay.
What has made them be what has made them, I feel like, united as a front is their messaging has become so extreme that I feel like a Republican on the spectrum can be like, that's my party.
Right.
I will say that generally, but I'm going to separate, Republicans that actually have a brain.
Yes.
I've encountered some Republicans.
They do exist.
I've encountered some Republicans when I was out, in Nevada, I've encountered some Republicans that have voted red all their life, but they're like, I'm Republican, but I'm voting blue because democracy is important.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there was a lot of those. And that, oh gosh, I mean, just to touch on that again for a second, that was also so huge. There were so many Republicans that came out in this election that were voting for Kamala. Yeah. Right. And it was at the country over party. That was the big messaging, and I so thought that was the final thing that would have helped us across the finish line there.
For sure.
Because I mean, I don't know. I feel like that was different than what we had seen before.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think also to touch on what you had just said, I think there was a lot of internal conflict and within the Democratic Party. There was a lot of division within the party. And like you said, with Trump, I mean, and his supporters, what a lot of people describe it as, it was like a cult, and it was almost, if you didn't support him, then, you're out. Right. Yeah. But it was almost like you said, it was, I think, easy for people that were already leaning that way to kind of, say, oh, this is where I belong. And then they were all there. But yeah, there was a lot of internal, I think, battles, and it did more harm than good for the Democrats, I think. So
I think because the left, I think, has become so factioned in our beliefs. There's a lot of just there's being a moderate Democrat to being a full-on leftist socialist, right? And I think our messaging is just so ununified. And I was watching election coverage, and a lot of these correspondents were saying the same thing. It's just we don't have unified messaging. Yeah. And I think about it in the context of what's happening in Israel and Palestine. People didn't vote for Kamala Harris because they said that she was funding a genocide. Right. Do you think it's gonna get better with Trump?
Under Trump.
Under Trump, it's right now, we want the humanitarian crisis to stop, what's happening in Gaza to stop. And do you realistically think it's going to get better under Trump? And do you think your vote independently or third party is going to help? Wow, you made a statement. You didn't vote for the party. We're in a two-party system. Unfortunately, we have a two-party system. Who's going to win is either going to be red or blue. It's either going to be the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. It's not going to be third party. And your vote for Jill Stein is not going to go anywhere.
I know.
It's not going to go anywhere. I think it was 2 million votes that went to third party voter, went to third party. Ridiculous. That could have helped us. But I think about this and how there's a lot of people on Twitter, from what I've been seeing, it's, it's like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are funding a genocide and I'm not going to be voting for.
I think they started calling it a protest vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not going to be voting for her because of that.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want what's happening abroad to stop. We want the war to stop. And you're not going to get anywhere with Trump.
Right.
It's only going to continue.
Right.
The humanitarian crisis is only going to continue. So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think there was a portion, of the Democratic Party that felt like the candidates and they weren't left enough, which I really think harmed the party. I always felt that too, even before. I think the far left ruined the Democratic Party in general. That's my opinion. But and I think Michelle Obama said something, I think it was at the DNC, and she spoke to those people actually in saying that you shouldn't be looking for perfection, because you're never going to get that in a candidate, and if it really did have to do with that issue in particular. Yes.
Snaps to this.
I know. Yeah. My whole last episode was all about the conflict in the Middle East. So if you want to hear more about that, but
I see the plug.
Yes, it really did. Yes, please do. No, it really did. Especially when it came to that, it was really around that issue, which was very unfortunate. Because again, and for me, I have a lot of ties to Israel, but like you said, these people, they really think it's going to be any better under Trump? It's crazy.
It's insane that they made it a single, there are single issue voters.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, women's right. Okay, who's going to be supporting abortion? Okay, Kamala Harris. Okay, voting for. Yeah. But when it comes to, like you said, what Michelle Obama, you're not going to have a candidate that checks every single box.
Right.
I think the thing that people were having trouble with, and I think kind of what made it difficult, and there's a lot of leftists that voted third party because they did not like her stance on what's happening in the Middle East. And I think that's just so unfortunate. It's just isn't it like, obviously you don't want what's happening there to be happening, but come on now.
I know. Everything else is.
Your vote went to trash. Your vote went to third party. Yeah. The day of the election, Jill Stein literally dropped out. Right. So where did your vote go? Went nowhere.
Yeah. Never in history has there been, an independent that has won. And I think it really is unfortunate, and also a lot of people that did that, I feel like that voted that, they just have no idea, feel like they don't even know what they're talking about most of the time when they're speaking out on these issues, and the things that they claim that they care about.
I think it's also on this moral high ground, and I've experienced this too.
Right?
I'm vehemently, I'm liberal, I'm progressive. The rights, which I don't think is politics, and I was talking to Nico about this. I don't think what I stand for is politics. I think it's human dignity, the right to live. Yep. But I've experienced this of some leftists in my life that are on some moral high ground. It's okay, I see you, I understand you, but do you really think this is going to serve you and serve the general good? I remember thrifting a while back, and a friend of mine saying that I shouldn't be thrifting because I'm making it more expensive for, unhoused folks, which I understand, but I'm a college student. I was a college student then. I couldn't afford, I didn't want to do fast fashion, so I went to a thrift store. I'm like, oh my God, I'm serving, I'm reusing clothing. And they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. You make X amount of money. You should be going to a store and buying fairly traded clothing. And I'm like, okay, wait 1 second. Let's relax. Let's relax here.
That's exactly what most of the country, they're tired of it. Because that's how they see. I mean, it's unfortunate because, it is a smaller group that speaks like that, but that is how the right and the half of the country sees the left. That's it, just by that, because they're a small group, but they're loud. And, it's almost like, because, and again, the Democrats, they have always been considered, the party of inclusion, but I feel with, that type of mindset and with the far left, it's almost like, it almost does the opposite, because it's like, if you don't agree with me, you're out then. You know what I mean? Like that person telling you what they think you should do. When, you do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? And so, I
will say, like you had said earlier, like the far left have ruined the party or have made it difficult for us to have unified messaging. Yeah. It's, to me though, also is the fact that why are we as Democrats trying to reach these like moderate voters? Like, why are we trying to be more moderate when the right is only getting more right? You know what I mean? Republicans back in the day, like McCain, Mitt Romney, I think it was a lot more, Republicans were a lot more different back then. I remember when I was younger, they were a lot different, not as culty, not as extreme, not as fascist.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, absolutely. You know, I think if you think about it, like moderate Republicans, which, and again, unfortunately, there's really not that many that you can find anymore because they have all either become totally for Trump or somewhere else. But moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats, they probably have more in common than they think they do. You know what I mean? And so that's why I feel like going more to the center, I feel like could benefit more people, you know? And I think going extreme in any direction, for me, you know, I can't stand both. Extreme right, extreme left. I don't like them either. Yeah. And I do think being more in the middle on a lot of things would benefit more people.
Yeah. I just wonder why, as Democrats, why we're trying to appease moderates or just Republicans to swing left when their candidate has only swung further right. Yeah.
I feel like there is hope. There's more hope for the Democrats than I think what the Republican Party has become now, you know, and there's no question. There's so much work that needs to be done with the right and the people that can vote for Trump. But you know, it's God, when you think about who votes for him, like it feels like there's no hope left that they can come back from that. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think, I will say their messaging on the right, like we think it's like they're still scrambling. Like you saw that in how Trump was addressing things, but how JD Vance was addressing things. And it's like, okay, your vice presidential nominee said this. First of all, JD Vance, like a few years back, said that he didn't not like Trump.
I know. So there's like so many clips of him.
What's happening there?
Right.
So I think they're still trying to get their messaging. They're like just so extreme that they're like at this point saying nonsense.
Yeah. And they're just kind of running with it.
They're running with it truly. And they're trying to see what can hold. And like, I think going into the election and what we thought, we're like, oh my God, Kamala Harris's campaign, we're going to win. So unified. We know exactly what we're talking about. We actually have plans. We don't have concepts of a plan.
Yes.
Concepts of let's divulge into that.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Had to bring that one.
We actually have a plan. Yeah. So we know what we want. Like our candidate knows what she wants to do with America. So I think both parties are trying to figure it out, but from election coverage, it seemed as though everyone was saying that the left still had to figure it out. But I will say, like, I think in the future, there are so many people that have become vehemently progressive and liberal. And I think this election, what will happen in the next 4 years, will transform people. Because the people that voted red, they're going to wake up one day and be like, oh my God, I messed up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is ruining my life.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't afford groceries. Well, you voted red.
Right.
You are literally getting what you asked for. Yeah. And they're going to be like, okay, I'm not voting red anymore.
And maybe that is something that can give us a bit of hope too. Maybe that's what it'll take. Maybe this needed to happen to those people to be a wake-up call for them. But I think, you know, and what's unfortunate again is there are the group of people too who voted red, you know, and maybe in the back of their minds they know all the consequences, they know how many people this is going to impact and how awful it's going to be, but there are some people who they couldn't stand the Democrats that much that they had to vote for him. And there's that group of people too. Hey, I'm your host, Nico Sapphire, and you're listening to Sapphire Sessions, providing you with engaging conversations with diverse guests coming from the life of a creative. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Sapphire Sessions. So I wanted to bring up a few comments to you, and these are just comments from social media.
So scared.
That I've don't worry. So these are just some random comments I found from social media. Just people expressing their opinions and emotions. After post-election. So here's the first one. So it says, quote, "As a liberal Mexican," they put in parentheses, and most Mexicans are pretty conservative. They said people of color don't like to be morally policed by purple-haired college kids and undergrounded professors, even when they can't stand Trump, like myself. Here's another one. This was actually said by Richie Torres. He is the Democratic representative for New York's 15th congressional district. He said, quote, "Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police or from the river to the sea or Latinx." He said there's more to lose than there is to gain politically from pandering to a far left that's more representative of Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok than it is of the real world. The working class is not buying the ivory towered nonsense that the left is selling. And here's one more. This is a comment from somebody who is presumably a Democratic voter. They said, quote, "Can't say this out loud because the majority of the people I know wouldn't want to hear it. I'm ashamed of the Democratic Party, and a huge part of me feels betrayed. Trump wouldn't have won if they had stayed closer to the center," end quote. So what do you think of all this? I mean, is this not a huge wake-up call for the Democrats to change their messaging? I know we touched on that a bit.
Oh my God, these comments, I'm like, I understand. Like, I see these comments and hear these comments and I understand. Because my parents, they're not going to want some college student being like, this is... like, how are you undecided? How are you not? How are you voting red? Like, they don't want that. And I think about this. There's a story that my friend had told me when I was in college, and she's also very liberal, and I think a lot more liberal than I am. And I think she and I were on the same page about how in class they were discussing politics and how someone didn't have information on, whatever political thing was happening then. Yeah. And another person in the class, very liberal, started yelling at them. Oh. How do you not understand this? This is the information I hear. Like this is the information that you should be following. Like, this is everything that you need to know. Started yelling at them. Okay. And my friend goes, that immediately turned them off. And I know it. Yeah. It's going to turn them off. Yeah. You don't meet these undecided voters. You don't meet these undecided people that are still trying to assess their values, what they want to believe in politics. You don't meet them with anger. You don't meet them with, oh my God, like these people, you don't meet them like seeing them as ignorant because they don't have the information. Sometimes they just simply don't have the information. Right. And, I used to be someone that was like, what? How do you not have the information? Like, you're so dumb. Like, what are you doing here? Yeah. I used to be that person. Yeah. But as I've grown, I've come to learn that it just takes conversation with these people and knowing that if they're open and willing to have a conversation with me, I will try to understand their perspective and give them my perspective, but I'm not going to be mad or angry with them if they don't know something. Yeah. So, because I was going to ask, you kind of touched on it a bit. It seems like, I wanted to talk about, like, how do you change how the right and the rest of the world sees the Democrats in a more positive light? Because that is such a prime example of the student yelling at the other student. Yeah. Like, how do you not know this? And, it seems like what you are describing is more of the approach, right, on how to engage with them. Yeah. Instead of coming at them like that, So I mean, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on that? And like, as far as the messaging goes, or maybe it's how the right to see Democrats. I think this just goes with my point earlier. Like, if they're already following Trump, I think it's really hard for them to see Democrats as anything other than like these people, like just their perception. Yeah, just their perception of them. I think it's going to be really difficult to change their mind. Yeah. And only when they have an open mind and an open heart, they're going to change their perception on them. Yeah. I always see this video that, is on social media of this old old white man. And I think he was presumably in like a rural like community, but he went up to a pride parade and the sign says former bigot.
Okay.
He was a former bigot and he was with this sign and there were so many people from this pride parade giving him hugs. And it's just like that video, I think in essence shows like who we are. As when you're a pride parade, I'm assuming you're voting blue.
Right.
I'm assuming you're voting blue. But I think it isn't until then when the right is open and willing to understand our perspectives and just open to love, because their party is standing on hate.
I know.
The party is standing on hate.
It really was a campaign. It was a hate-driven campaign.
Yes, a hate-driven campaign. And our campaign, I think Kamala Harris's campaign, was one of love and community. I watched these videos of these rallies and oh my God, the rallies were amazing. Let's talk about that. The rallies were amazing. Everyone dancing, everyone singing.
Gosh, it was,
so much love. I know.
Yeah.
So much fun.
I know. Like imagine being at the DNC.
Oh my God. A party.
That was a party.
A party for us.
That was a party.
Would have loved to have been there.
I know.
But I see these and I'm like, just so much love.
Yeah.
You feel safe.
Yeah. It's community.
It's community.
Yeah.
And you don't have that on the right. It isn't until you have someone from the right and they are like, okay, I'm ready to accept love. I'm ready to open my arms and see what this other party has to say. And only then they're going to see how much love we have to share.
Right.
How much, even if you are a former bigot, we're glad that you're here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be upset with you for having believe the things that you did. I'm just glad that you're here.
Right. And
you know,
that's the way to approach it. Yeah. But I mean, this is probably a question that neither of us can answer, but like how to make them more open. I don't know. And like you said, it's for somebody who's already gone that far. Is it possible for them to come back?
Yeah. I think in this case, and I think this goes back to our conversation about compassion, I said that it's hard for me to have compassion for these people. Right. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I think we should have compassion. We should have compassion for these people. And it's hard for me to have compassion, but we should. And I'm on Twitter and there's this person that had like this long thread about how their neighbor was against trans folk.
Okay.
And the person tweeting was trans and they had some sort of story of how they would interact with this person, but they only interacted with this like transphobe with love and with kindness.
Yeah.
And one day that person just like came around of just, they're like, oh, because you're meeting a person like with kindness and they're like, oh wait, like they're nice. Like, why am I so full of hate? Like, why am I against this? Why am I against this person that's simply a person that feels much more comfortable in their skin? Like, I don't see them as different. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a whole other thing too. I think it is different. And that I feel like is one of the biggest things that can maybe turn somebody when you have somebody in your life that's especially important to you and you care about, and maybe, they think differently than you, but then it can like rub off on them in a sense. And I think it's easier compared to the MAGA party. If they're just around other people who believe that.
I think this has taken a turn because earlier I was like, I do not have compassion for them, but I know we should.
Look at that.
But I know we should have because I think more now than ever, I think right now we have to rely on community. I think that's been the big thing, relying on community, being kind to others. And that's what Kamala Harris had said in her speech, just being kind to others. Like that's what's going to carry us in these next 4 years and letting other people know that you're here. Know that you're there to support them. And, Trump will do what he's going to do. And we're going to be here, kind, open arms. I told you so.
Right.
I told you so.
Right.
You got what you asked for. But I'm glad that you turned around and you acknowledge what you did. Like acknowledge.
Like you're talking to a child, but
I'm here to support you in this new endeavor of yours. But like, we have to, like, I know we have to meet them with kindness. That's what Mamala would say.
Yeah.
That's what Mamala would say.
Yes, I know. Earlier you said something. You were like, let's talk about this. You kind of sounded like her for a second. Earlier in the episode.
I know. I so wish that like I saw this tweet. It was like because I was so distraught after the election. Everyone's like, I need Kamala Harris like on speed dial. Like she's the only person that could realistically calm me down about this whole thing because like I'm still so distraught. But I know that Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama, my queens, they would say to meet these people with compassion and to treat like our neighbors with kindness.
Yeah.
On these speeches, they're like, our neighbors, treating them with kindness and stuff like that, no matter where they come from, no matter who they vote for.
Right.
Treating these people with kindness because you don't want to be the left person, the person that voted blue, yelling at them. Like, I know that's not going to get to them, and they're only ever going to see us like as someone that's yelled at them for voting the way that they did.
Yeah.
We have to be nice. We have to be kind, but also there's a part of me. It's like,
know,
you voted against me in my whole existence.
I know. It is the most difficult thing. And I think it's really important we're having this conversation.
So it's a roller coaster of emotions because like, I like to, I'm a treat him with kindness person, kill him with kindness person. I'm so that person. Yeah. But it's so hard to be like killing them with kindness when it's like you literally didn't want me to be alive. You don't validate my existence. You don't see me as a person. Right. But then I read these stories of people on Twitter of, that person that had said that they're trans, they identify as trans, and they were having conversations, their neighbors with a transphobe, and they still met this person with kindness. And then that transphobe came around. So I read the stories and I'm like, okay, maybe I should be nice to these people. But then it's like, oof, you literally, I know. What are we gonna do here?
Yeah, and that's what, it's been so difficult for a lot of people, obviously, to navigate the aftermath, right? And because it is like you just want to, part of you, you just want to scream at them. Like, how do you not see this? You know what I mean? But I
want to scream all the time at them. But I know that's not the way. I know that's not the way.
It sucks, I know. And then, we always got to be the bigger person here, and it's unfortunate because of how qualified Kamala is, obviously,
for sure,
and how disgustingly unqualified Trump is. Yeah.
What I'm going to do, and I think what a lot of people are just going to do, like on Twitter that I've seen, and just like these immigrants that voted red, even when Trump has literally said, I'm going to deport you.
I know.
And I saw this video of this immigrant, they had said that they were voting red, and the guy goes, why? And he goes, I'm already here. And that's why I'm voting red. And he's like, no, but you're an immigrant. He's like, I'm already here. We don't need any more immigrants here.
Okay.
How do you say that? How do you say that when you know how hard it was to get into the States? The immigration system in itself is so hard. Like, I know a few friends that are like undocumented, and it's just like the immigration process is so hard and it's so long. So how do you go through that whole process and you say, I'm still going to vote red? And also he could possibly deport you.
Right.
So, it's unfortunate, all of it.
Yeah, it really is.
Unfortunate, all of
it. Yeah, it is. You saw Kamala Harris at Pride.
Yes.
A while back. When was that again?
In 2019.
Oh, okay. That was a while ago.
Yes, it was a while ago. I was a junior in high school. Yes, I was a junior in high school.
Or wasn't that okay?
I was junior high school, not even out of the closet. So I went to this Pride parade and I was like so nervous because I was like, okay, like I'm going to Pride and I'm not even out yet. So how are people going to perceive me? Just like the things that, when you're still in the closet and I came from a very conservative community. So I was very scared about how people were going to see me when I went to this, Pride parade and posting content and all of this stuff. But I immediately felt so safe and so welcomed. And I went to the parade to march with Kamala Harris. This was I think her first campaign for presidency. Okay.
So it was kind of like for her.
Yeah, Kamala for the people. Kamala for the people. Okay. That was her little party of people there. Yeah. And I was so excited. I got my cousin and I got my gay bestie with me.
Awesome.
I was having the time of my life, and I was like, I want to march with Kamala Harris because in 2019 it was, Trump was still president. So I was like, okay, we need something different. And I think Kamala Harris is exactly the person we should have as president. So I was basically ahead of my time. Yeah. And I was like, I want her to be the next president of the United States. Like she is at Pride. She's marching with me. Yeah. She's a daughter of immigrants. Like she's Asian. Like, oh my God. Like I want her to be the next president of the United States. So of course I had to go out and march with her. And I had 2 friends that were actually a part of her campaign. So they were not past like the barricade. They were actually like right next to her like convertible car while she was like waving to people. And she had stopped because there was some sort of protest happening at the Pride Parade. And she was talking to the people in the streets, but she was also talking to the people that were marching with her. And I was at the very front because I was like, I will be damned if I walk away and not have met Kamala Harris. So I was in the very front with my cousin and my gay bestie, and she was walking from person to person, and a friend of mine that was with her on the campaign, I gave her my phone and I was like, you have to take a video of this. You have to take a picture. And she was waving. She was shaking everyone's hand. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm next. And I met her and I had like 3 pictures with her. She was so kind, so nice. And I was like, oh my God, she is going to be the next president of the United States. I think she obviously she had dropped out.
That's right.
Later.
That's right.
Because it was going to be Biden. He was going to be the Democrat nominee. Right. I think a lot of things were happening in her campaign that still had not been figured out the way that it was. Like her campaign then is much, much different to, her campaign recently.
But the other thing, this just made me think of it. I think something that also harmed her. There were things when she was trying to run then that kind of came back to bite her. And I think people couldn't look past that either, because I think she was, and we just talked about this, she was a bit more left back then. And I think, I think she did become more moderate herself. It seemed, genuine, but obviously she was trying to reach more people, than then. But regardless, what a cool
no, I had the best time, and I have a live picture on my phone. It wasn't a picture of me and her, but my friend had started taking pictures as she was walking, and my cousin he got a picture right before me, but Kamala Harris was going to take a picture with the person next to him. And she had noticed him, and she immediately was like, oh, come in the picture.
Okay, so
to my cousin.
Oh, okay.
And I think that truly when I see that, I'm like, I think that speaks volumes for her as a person to have seen my cousin wanting to sit in the picture, and she immediately was like, oh my God, come in the picture. I'll have to show you that live photo after this. But she had taken multiple pictures with the people marching with her, and she was so kind, and she was marching with her denim pride jacket.
That's right. I remember the photos. God. Yeah, that's so awesome. That's so awesome.
Love her.
Was that I forgot, was that WeHo or LA?
That was LA. I was still living in Northern California then, so I drove like 2 hours to go to San Francisco, and that was my first ever Pride parade. And I went to the San Francisco Pride. I'm like, isn't that so exciting?
Wait, but was the one with Kamala Harris, that was in LA?
No, that was in San Francisco. 2019, San Francisco.
Okay, totally thought that was LA. Okay.
Yeah, I wish she was here in LA.
I could have sworn she was out at WeHo. What time? Maybe not.
She was the San Francisco district attorney, and then the senator.
Right.
During that time. Right. So she's always been a Bay Area lady. That's right. And I think that's why I connected to her so much and resonated with her so much, because she comes from my whereabouts. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, what a experience
that's forever going to be ingrained in my mind. And I was showing all these volunteers while I was on the bus for canvassing with her. I was like, guess who I met?
Oh my gosh.
I met her. She's amazing. She's so kind.
That's my girl right there.
That's my girl. I was always a supporter of her.
The biggest flex. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm ready for it. I mean, I'm seeing I'm seeing tweets and just a lot of, stuff about her running again in 2028.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully our democracy is still intact then, and hopefully Donald Trump has not literally become a dictator. So let's hope there's still an election of some sort in 2028.
That's the hope.
And hopefully she runs again, because I'm ready.
Do you want her to?
Yeah.
You think she could?
Yeah. Come on. She literally, within like 3 months, she garnered like 74 million votes.
Yeah.
If only it should. She was so, like, her whole campaign was so organized. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Imagine what she could do.
There has been other talk. There's a lot of people, and I don't know, because of what happened this time, I'm not sure if it would work out a second time. I don't know, just because of how things turned out. And I think a big, and I had mentioned this before, I think what was unfortunate, that a lot of her old views on things when she was a bit more left, back in 2020, that people couldn't look past it. And, I think unfortunately, like, that it was a huge thing. It was a reason why she didn't win. And I think,
weren't some of those things like debunked? I think, like, as people were researching more into what she had voted for, what she'd done as a prosecutor specifically, I think a lot of the discourse about that was her as a prosecutor. But also, people change, people grow. Yeah. Politicians, like,
I know. Yeah, and I think that was also so unfortunate. She had spoke to, I'm not sure if her delivery was the best, though, because she was asked that several times about, why did you change, your views on this, when you, like, what had happened was people kept bringing things back up. It's kind of reminded me of, like, the cancel culture, like on Twitter or something. They would bring up something that you said from like 5-10 years ago, right? Of course people evolve, but it was, I think unfortunate that I think her delivery on that, and, she didn't speak to that maybe enough, right? Because she did try to say that, what was the thing? People had a whole field day with this when she said that her values haven't changed, right? But, I think that would keep happening, and I'm not sure if she could fully detach from how people saw her, because what I think was happening, the people, who maybe didn't know as much about her, they were still seeing her as the 2019 Kamala Harris.
Yeah. While we talk about this, and I think, we talk about Kamala Harris, but there's a quote that was said by a CNN correspondent of how these two candidates are running on totally two different campaigns. Yeah. Kamala Harris is running on the campaign of flawlessness. Yeah. And Donald Trump is running the campaign of lawlessness.
Oh, yeah. I might have heard that. That's a good one.
So,
you know what? Actually, I think that was Van Jones, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that.
We can discuss about how Kamala Harris's policies have changed, how some of her positions have changed, but let's not forget the bigger problem here. Why are we talking about Kamala Harris's position on who she prosecuted, her position on marijuana? Why are we talking about that when Donald Trump, literally a convicted felon?
Well, yeah, obviously.
So, I'm sure you feel the same way, but it's like the same thing with what Michelle had said, like, no candidate's going to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think, that, was something that I think hurt her. It was just, she couldn't, even though, again, like, I think she was trying to speak on that and how, but I don't know if the delivery, if it really reached everybody, that, because of course, and most people, it's common sense that people evolve, especially politicians, think they change their minds. Yeah. And also what's crazy, like, oh my God, the amount of times Trump has flip-flopped on things. I mean, so I can't even with that, but I think she couldn't get away from the 2019 or how people saw her then.
And you know what? I think this ties into what we have been talking about in terms of just like left and unifying messages and like the extreme left. Right. It's sometimes the extreme left that are bringing up these things. They're bringing up how our policies have changed and why they have changed, Yeah. And understandably so. It's like, why have some of these things changed? But like, at the end of the day, let's be realistic here, guys. Yeah. Her policies have changed, but most of the policies that she has stood on, women's right to her own body, LGBTQ rights, transgender rights. Yeah. All the same. Yeah. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on humanity first, and then the rest we can divulge into.
Yeah. I mean, because personally, too, I think it was smart for her to, a lot of what she stood for and what she stands for now, I think I agreed with more of it than maybe 2019 Kamala, and I think a lot of people did. Mm-hmm. And so I think that benefited her. But like I said, it was just, it sucked that I think people couldn't see past that, and they couldn't see how, she did change or just evolve. I think maybe if she would have said it like that, and it, I don't know. Sometimes when people would ask her about that, like interviewers, she would kind of bounce around that a little bit. Yeah. And so I think that's also what made people maybe not totally, trust her credibility on that. So, I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen in 28.
You know what? I hope she runs.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely not the only one.
And I will be again in battleground states, making sure that she is getting elected to be the president. Yeah. And hopefully by then we will not have to deal with Donald Trump.
Oh, I know. That's the one thing too that again, people have been talking about a good thing. Now we know, like, he will definitely not be able to run again.
Well, let's hope he doesn't like
right
term limits. Let's like hope he doesn't like reverse that.
Yeah.
And if he does, Obama will come out of the woodworks. He'll save us all.
Oh gosh, no, it's God. I mean, it's really time for a woman president.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah, it's sad because I feel like, it showed the world maybe wasn't as ready as maybe we thought they were to have that.
And, I think one thing that I will say, when it came to this election, it wasn't about her stances or what she was doing or what her values were or anything like that. I think it's because she was a she.
Yeah.
It was a she.
I know. Yeah, there were a lot of people too who just regardless, again, like you said, of policies and whatnot, like they just couldn't bring themselves to vote for a woman, which is so crazy. That's another thing too that I can't wrap my brain around that.
I mean, if Kamala Harris was Carl Harris, we would have won.
Yeah.
If we would have won,
honestly,
it makes me think of 2016 of how Hillary Clinton was getting heated on because she was seen as elitist and she was seen as cold and she was seen as pretentious.
Yeah. There's a double standard for sure, just because she was a woman.
It wasn't about those things. It was because she was a woman.
Yeah.
You have Kamala Harris, who's quite literally like the opposite. She is a queen of her laughs. Like everyone's like, oh my God, she laughs so much. She's so full of joy.
I know.
Like the complete opposite of the image like that Hillary Clinton
right.
had.
That's true.
So it's like, okay, too cold, too elitist. Okay, like, we have someone here who's perfectly qualified, who laughs a lot, who's so happy.
Yeah, exactly.
She's the candidate.
What could be better? Yeah.
And no, they didn't vote for her. It's because she's a woman.
I know. Yeah, I mean, like you said, hopefully, in the next 4 years, I mean, I don't know, Democrats, they got to figure this out, and hopefully we will see a change. I mean, this is the time for that.
This is the time, like Kamala Harris said, like this is the time to roll up our sleeves and like get into it.
Exactly.
And like, that really inspired me to get involved with coalitions and to get involved with nonprofits. Moving forward, I think that's what we have to do, because obviously there's a grieving period, and I was still really sad about the election, mourning what happened in the election, and still very distraught about it. But we can't do anything right now. It's time up to roll up our sleeves, to resist, and to ensure that in 2026 we have Democratic congressmen and Democratic senators to ensure that there's checks and balances right now. Because right now, red everywhere. That's scary. Yeah. The Supreme Court too.
I know.
The Supreme Court's doing a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of things. And that's going to require like 10 more episodes to discuss what the Supreme Court's doing. So we'll save you guys from that.
But yes, I did want to end on, some more uplifting things and our hopes for the future, right? And, we talked a lot about emotions and what went wrong, what we thought went wrong. But of course, as Kamala said in her concession speech, this is a fight that might take a while. And also her quote, oh my gosh, that was so emotional that she said in that too, which I loved, that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. So that definitely hits home. So, and we said this earlier too, all we can do is keep fighting, enjoy what we have here, and lean on each other.
Lean on each other,
right?
I'm so grateful to have you.
Me too, man. Yeah.
We're going to get through this.
Yes, together we are. We definitely will. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Sapphire Sessions. We sure covered a lot. But I want to thank you, Ella, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a pleasure.
Of course. I'm so
the
glad.
Best time.
I'm so glad. And for joining me, in these very important discussions. So as always, you can stay up to date with all my shows on Instagram at nico.sapphire and at Sapphire Sessions Podcast for all the latest and all things pod related. And just another reminder, you can continue listening to Sapphire Sessions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and Amazon Music. And Ella, tell everyone where they can find you.
You could find me on Instagram at Ella S. Pascua, spelled ELLASPASCUA.
Great.
Go follow me.
There you go. Yeah, you can stay up to date with everything, all the cool stuff Ella's doing. And any last comments for the listeners? Anything?
I think my last comments for everyone, I think we've discussed this, is, this is the time to start fighting. We've been fighting for the past 8 years, and we cannot stop now. I, just like everyone else, am wanting to stay in bed and cry about this election, but it's time to roll up our sleeves and to fight for people that are not as privileged as us. Mm-hmm. As we live in California, and, for those that are living in those red states and just those that don't know what's happening, those are the people that we're fighting for.
Exactly. And that's why we are here talking about it.
Yes.
Hopefully give a voice to those who don't have one.
Yes.
So, well, you heard it here, guys. And thanks for listening. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Sapphire Sessions. Production brought to you by me, Nico Sapphire. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you guys have any ideas of topics you'd like me to talk about or guests you'd like me to bring on, feel free to reach out on Instagram at Sapphire Sessions Podcast or my personal page at nico.sapphire. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time, only on Sapphire Sessions. Oh my gosh.
Girl, 2 hours. 2 hours. What are we going to do?
Boy.
We're two friends.